New York City Hospital now says it will no longer offer transgender surgeries for children.
There should have never, ever been a transgender program for minors to begin with. I'm glad these programs are being shut down. However, the way it's being done does give me some pause. One final story we're going to touch today. I can't believe we're still doing this, but apparently we are. There are hospitals that are announcing they will be shutting down their medical transition treatments for minors who have gender dysphoria, or I guess don't, and just feel non-binary or something. I mean, this stuff really did get out of control. And Democrats are being totally normal. They're being like, yes, we're going to preserve this for adults, but we agree there's no evidence that this is effective or safe, and kids can't understand this, and most of the public thinks this shouldn't be allowed, so we're going to come to the table and we can all agree. Just kidding. They're doing the opposite. They're throwing their toys out the pram, and at least some of them in New York are throwing a fit because these hospitals are caving essentially to the Trump administration's latest policies and ending what I think is a barbaric and kind of awful practice. Anyway, here's Fox News reporting about this latest development. Then we'll get into the response from some of these elected Democrats.
Welcome back. A top New York City hospital now says it will no longer offer transgender surgeries for children. NYU Langone Medical Center cites the current regulatory environment as the leading factor in making that decision. Let's bring in Dr. Mark Siegel, Fox News senior medical analyst, also professor of medicine and practicing internist at NYU Langone. Doctor, I guess big picture question here is, were you part of this decision-making process? Do you agree with the outcome, and do you think it's going to serve as a model for other U.S. hospitals?
I was not part of the decision-making process. I agree with the outcome with one provision. We have to continue mental health support for young people that are having gender dysphoria, which is, by the way, 60 to 80% of the time goes away or diminishes. But mental health support is key, and that is still in place at NYU, and I applaud that. We also have to look after those that are no longer in this program. What's happening with them? Where are they going to get their care? That's also important. This change not only involves surgeries, it also involves the use of puberty blockers, and hormone therapy is going to stop. I actually agree with all of this for children. It's already the case in the UK. It's the case in parts of Europe. Here's why. Because, first of all, over 10% of children then detransition, decide they made a mistake. Secondly, puberty blockers with hormones can have long-term medical effects, in my opinion, including behavioral issues, including bone issues and fertility issues. You know, we're seeing more and more issues regarding anxiety. I think mental health support has been prematurely stopped. I think there's too much parental overlay. And you talk about detransition, obviously very hard to detransition from a mastectomy. So all of this is, the key word here is children. What are we doing with our children? And on top of all of that, we're seeing an increased amount of crimes that are being committed, violent crimes like the one in Canada, which involve transgender individuals. We have to support mental health.
So obviously there's a lot in that clip I just played you, and some of it I might quibble with on the edges, but generally I agree. I mean, these are practices that, one, I love how we were told for years, like, minors don't get surgeries. The number of times I was told that surgeries on minors is not a thing, and in reality, insurance records have shown that thousands of surgeries were happening. Not millions, right, but thousands. The number of times I was told that's not a thing, only to now have all these places announce that they're no longer performing surgeries on minors. The gaslighting was real, and I'm not over it. Like, I'm not forgiving y'all for that. I know that you're cute, you think you got away with it. Not in my book. But regardless, I'm glad to see this stuff come to an end. Obviously, I just don't think a minor can really consent or comprehend to the lifelong ramifications of taking puberty blockers and never going through your birth sex puberty. And the doctor here is right that if they actually do go through their puberty, gender dysphoria will dissolve in a lot of cases, or resolve rather. And yeah, it's crazy that this was ever being done. But of course, some Democrats are doubling down on it. We're going to get to that. First, I do want to read this tweet because Republicans are naturally celebrating. Senator Ted Cruz wrote, "Good. There should have never, ever been a transgender program for minors to begin with. If other hospitals don't want their federal funds pulled, they should follow suit." And the reason I want to include this tweet is because I actually think it raises an interesting point. I'm glad these things are coming to an end. I'm glad these programs are being shut down. However, the way it's being done does give me some pause. The way I'd like to have seen this be done is by states and localities passing laws and restrictions, shutting it down themselves. The problem with doing it this way, where the federal government is essentially coercing all of these hospitals in all 50 states, including blue states, and trying to coerce them all into shutting down the provision of these medical, I don't even want to call them treatments, but obviously that's what they think they are, to minors, is that they're using the Medicaid lever, right? They're using the federal dollars lever of, we have all this money that your hospital would go bankrupt without, so you have to do what we want. Now, the problem I have with that is it's very easy for me to imagine that you could simply have a Democratic president use that same lever to force hospitals in all 50 states. You must offer gender care, transition care for minors. They call it life-saving gender-affirming care. Of course, there's not actually evidence of that. We've talked about that before. But so if you do it this way, you're going to have what? The nation just switch like a light switch every few years on and off for all these clinics opening and closing at all these hospitals. I'm not really sure this is an appropriate mechanism to just be embracing like this kind of one size that fits all. We get to dictate policy in all 50 states using federal leverage because, I mean, conservatives and Republicans have complained about that kind of thing from Democrats in the past for a long time. So I'm definitely happy with the outcome, but I do have some questions about the method. And it's also not like that's not lasting change necessarily then, if it's just because of this federal threat. I do feel bad for the hospitals, though, and the people running them, because on one hand, they have President Trump threatening to bankrupt them and cut off their federal funds that they simply can't function without. And then on the other hand, they have these local and state lawmakers, the Democrats, threatening to punish them if they do go along with it. So they're really in kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. But meanwhile, you have Democrats like Mayor Zohran Mamdani, who is, of course, kind of a leading figure in the party these days. And I think they're kind of rallying around him. He took a stand that he wants to die on this hill. Remember, he did campaign on making New York City a sanctuary for transgender children and even giving people free taxpayer-funded child sex changes, because that's totally normal and not at all. It's insane. Anyway, here's Mayor Mamdani's tweet. "This is yet another example of a private institution capitulating to the federal government's assault on transgender rights. In the face of these attacks, New York City will continue to be a refuge for the LGBTQIA+ community." Yeah, I don't feel attacked. I do resent, as a gay man, being lumped in with this, like, oh, this is a LGBTQ rights issue, we're going to protect it. That's not me. I got nothing to do with that one, man. I never supported that, never will, never have. Minors being put on puberty blockers or have double mastectomies on 15-year-old girls. That's insane. And I really do resent the conflation of that as all LGBTQ, and even the conflation of it with trans rights. I think if they had separated adult trans people's ability to get these care as a very distinct matter from minors, they would have a lot more support for it. I certainly still support their right as adults to do what they want, but it's all just crazy to me. I mean, the research, the evidence is not on the side of any of this. Overseas, we're seeing it change, but yet they're just like firmly wedded to this. Leaders in the Democratic Party are dying on this hill, and it's just absolutely insane to me. And it's one of the many reasons why I think they're failing to meet the moment, which is just to provide kind of a sane, normal alternative to Trump. Well, if that alternative is you got to be down with the child sex change train, people are not going to get on board that train. It's going to be like when you see a crazy person talking to themselves in the subway car and you walk down to the next car and get in the other one. It's going to be that, but for the elections and for politics. So my free advice to Democrats is to stop defending this insanity, but they don't listen to me. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe if you aren't yet. Do hit that like button while you're at it, and consider becoming a channel member to support my work. And that'll be it for this episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk again real soon.